The other candidate for State School Superintendent is Mr. John Barge. Mr. Barge, unfortunately, was not able to attend, but he did send a representative. Mr. Joel Thorton will be speaking on his behalf.
Thanks for extending the invitation to us and for being out here tonight. I am Joel Thornton. I'm a constitutional attorney. I do mostly religious freedom work. If anybody's familiar with the American Center for Law and Justice out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, I spent about 15 years as Jay Sekulo's right hand. So I have a lot of experience in working in the school system as an attorney, unfortunately suing quite a number of school systems around the country. We're not going to do that here tonight, I promise. That's the last you're going to hear about me. Tonight I'm John Barge. I'm here to tell you about John Barge. He's a friend of mine, has been for over 20 years. He's a man of great conservative values at his core, and I have, frankly, the best job in the world tonight because I get to brag about John. I don't have to talk about anything else. As you know from what you just heard, there's a lot involved in how do we make a better school system at the local level for the state of Georgia. I know you guys are tired of hearing that, thank God for Mississippi, because that way we don't have to be at the bottom. That's not completely true. Georgia schools are doing a little bit better than most of us believe they are. I found that out as I really started working tightly with John in this race. But at the same time, they're not at a level that we can accept. And the one thing that we have to have, the one thing that really matters and that separates John from all the other candidates, is we have to have proven leadership experience. It's not enough to care for the kids, because everybody in this race is here. They're educators because they care for students. They care for young people. They want to make a difference in people's lives. And that's important. But you know, the problem with education in Georgia is not our students. I think we can all agree on that. We can't blame our education system on the children. The problem with education in Georgia is the adults. It's the people who are mandating from Atlanta what's going to happen at the local school level and not paying for it after they mandate it, or not checking to see if the mandate makes any logical sense in a classroom because they haven't been in a classroom, because they don't have interaction back with the classroom, they don't receive feedback. It's the adults in Washington, D.C. who keep handing out federally mandated programs that basically do this. They add money to the education budget that's earmarked for federal employees who can't do anything except what they're mandated to do as a federal employee. If they get through at 11 o'clock in the morning, they're done for the day because they can't help on the state level because that's state money. My sister's an educator up in Floyd County, Georgia. She gets paid from 4 different sources for one job. She spends a good bit of her time accounting for what she did to make sure that the federal government doesn't get shorted on what they did, but also to make sure that she's not doing state and local work on the federal government's behalf. We need proven leadership. John has spent 5 years in the classroom as a teacher. He's been an assistant principal. He's been a principal. He was the director of career tech at the State Department of Education about 7 years ago. And he's currently the director of curriculum for high school and middle school in Bartow County, which is the 25th largest school district out of 180 in the state of Georgia. He's worked in urban schools, suburban schools, and rural schools. What that means is that John understands Georgia's schools. He's worked in every area that you can work, at every level that you can work. He understands what a mandate or what a new rule from Atlanta means in a classroom. He understands what it means to a principal who's concerned with a lot of classrooms, and he understands what it means to a school district who's concerned with a number of schools, more classrooms. There are 3 things that we're really looking at that we think are key. The first one is budget. Everybody knows revenues are down. They're projecting that they're going to be down until probably 2014. I don't know if that's an optimistic guess or not. But what that means is that there's going to be no new money for education. So how are we going to continue to educate our children on less money? And I think that when you hear from John, and when you hear from me tonight on John's behalf, what you're going to understand is this. There's a lot of waste that goes on in government, and a lot of that waste goes on in Atlanta, Georgia, at the State Department of Education and at the outlying offices. One of the things we've got to do is we have to get rid of some of the layers of bureaucracy that exist at the State Department. It's not a popular idea with people at the State Department, but why would we pay a 6-figure salary in Atlanta while we're firing teachers in Bartow County or in Forsyth County? It doesn't make any logical sense. Here's what we know. Education always occurs at the local level. Students are educated in Forsyth County. They're not educated in Atlanta unless they live in Atlanta. And what we also know is that the most expensive way to educate children is locally where they live. If you're paying money into Atlanta for education, it's costing you more there than it does here to educate children. So there's a lot of waste in this budget that we can find and we can carve out. You're not creating new revenue, but what you're doing is you're using money more smartly. And I hope for you English teachers, more smartly is correct. It doesn't sound right in my head for a moment, sorry. Another way that we can help with the budget gets into one of the other areas that Richard brought up. It's testing. Bartow County had a very successful year in testing this year. Only 4 students in the county threw up on their test answer sheets. That was considered successful. We have put so much pressure on these students on these high-stakes tests, winner take all. We wouldn't go to Vegas with these odds. But we make our children go in the classroom with these odds, so much so that teachers are forced to teach the test because there's too much writing on it to let the students fail. What's the solution to that? The federal government's answer to that is we need more assessment. I dare say that Socrates judged his teaching ability on how much his students learned, not how well they took tests. But we have decided to go with the testing route. One of the things that John has pledged to do, and this job requires working with the state school board, the state legislature, and the governor's office. John has pledged to work with those people. That's where proven leadership experience matters. Working with boards and working with groups of people to come to a consensus on how better to educate our children, how to stop some of the senseless testing, how to stop requiring things that don't make sense. One of the solutions that we had to our testing is this. In the social studies area, you had to, 2 years ago, you had to pass 67% of the answers on the test to be considered passing in the state of Georgia. 67%. I don't know if you heard, but in the science area, we now have 90% passage rate in the state of Georgia for 2010. Do you know how we achieved that? We achieved that without doing anything to improve science education. We didn't spend any more time teaching children. We didn't spend any more time creating a science curriculum. We said instead of 67% passage, answer is correct to pass, you only need 47% to pass. Isn't that amazing? If you drop passing from 67% to 47%, you can get the numbers of people that pass up. That's a solution that comes from Atlanta. That's a solution that comes from Washington. That's not a solution that a local classroom teacher would find and a local school board. We have to stop that kind of foolishness. The third area that we really need some help is in our curriculum. I don't know, does anybody in here have high school students right now? Sophomores or freshmen? Sophomores? God bless you. Your kids have been the biggest guinea pigs in the history of the United States education. We can blame that on a number of people. We'll start at Washington because, frankly, they're quite much to blame. We can come back to Atlanta because when Washington wasn't drawing enough blood from you, Atlanta decided to draw some more blood from you and change the math curriculum. Those of you who don't have high school students, what you don't know, when you went to school, you sat in a class for a year called algebra. When you finished algebra, you sat in a class for a year called geometry. And when you finished geometry, you went to algebra 2. In Georgia now, you have Math 1, Math 2, next year you'll have Math 3, and the next year you'll have Math 4. Math 1 is an integrated math course that involves the teaching of algebra, geometry, and statistics together.